He's there.
Did you say you saw Joe there?
Yeah, he is on there.
Oh,
Councilman
great.
Johnson is
Okay, yeah, well,
online.
let's go ahead and call this thing to order. Good evening, everyone. Ms. Dean, will you take roll, and we'll call the Public and Parks and Public Works meeting to order. Starting with the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add, subtract, questions, things that we need to do with that, or
No changes.
no changes there? Councilman Johnson?
Good luck getting through all this.
All right, well, let's talk fast. We'll use our TV commercial lawyer voices. Okay, anything you think we need to trim or put at the end just in case? Or are you good with the way it is?
Is there any way to maybe bump up the utility rate study? Man, we really got to figure out how we're going to pay for everything. So
Okay.
I'm just wondering if there's anything else that could fall down below that.
Well, why don't we scoot that up to number 3, and then we'll put everything out, keep everything else in the order that it's in.
Okay.
Okay. Is that good with you? Okay. All right. We'll make that change, and we'll consider the agenda approved. And oh shoot, I'm scrolling on this like I can control it, and I cannot. All right. So then that brings up I lost my thing. That brings up public comment. Anybody in the there's nobody in the room. Is there anybody in the online gallery? See anybody there, Ms. Dean? I'm seeing no one.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, then let's move on to AB 22-127, adoption of the ADA transition plan.
Evening, Council.
Chair, do we want to do minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, did anybody see anything that they wanted to change on the minutes?
No recent alterations. Move to approve as presented.
Is there a second? All right, approved. Okay, thank you. Now let's go to Mr. Fry.
Evening, Council and Mayor. First, thanks for bearing with me while I do this remotely. I'm trying to spare you some germs, so I appreciate your patience while I'm out here. So anyways, tonight I'm bringing forth AB 22-127, which is the final adoption of the ADA transition plan. I'm sure you guys remember this from last month, AB 23-109, which was bringing forth the draft plan and opening it for public comment. While the plan was open for public comment, we didn't receive any comments. So there are effectively no changes to the plan to what you guys saw last month. And so as such, I'm just going to spare you guys the presentation that I gave last time, as well as the breakdown of the whole plan, and instead just take this time to answer any questions you guys might have.
Well, I did ask a question before the meeting about how we're working the numbers on was it the curb ramp? If you look on page 39 of the plan, table C7, there was a discrepancy in the numbers. It says there's a 15% contingency on each of those. The dollar figure shown is a 20% contingency, and I understand that the expectation is that the curb ramps will cost somewhere between 12.5 and 17.5. So maybe that's where the numbers got fudged. But if we're going to show 20% contingency. Let's call it a 20% contingency. And if we mean a 15% contingency, I was just thinking we probably want to show the 15% contingency.
All right.
Your thought?
Uh, yeah, no, that is a excellent catch. I think it's supposed to be a 20% contingency, which is why it's listed as $2,500 as opposed to, oh, what would that be, $1,800 or $1,900? I think it's just a mistype, and so I'll correct it and have that corrected to say 20% contingency for the final plan.
Other than that, oh, I'm sorry, Councilman Holloway, Councilman Johnson, do you guys have any questions?
No.
Okay, the only other question I have is, Mr. Fry and Mr. Hamlin, you guys are named as the responsible parties in this. And I don't know what comes with being named in something like this as the responsible party. What kind of, does that add to you any, that doesn't put any liability on you or anything like that, does it?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
It doesn't make us the designated felon in this case.
It just makes you the people that have to
They're
answer.
responsible. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, well, I trust that you'll keep us on our toes to get anything done that you need done so that you can complete this.
Yeah.
Councilman Holloway?
No, and if anything were arise as they fulfill their duties to the city through WICA would cover. So don't worry.
So these guys,
Just want to make sure you understand.
but it is your name and that's important. So, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the goal is it is just to have a point person so that, you know, if somebody were to have a complaint and they wanted to reach out, then they go, okay, I should call Jeff Hamlin, it looks like, or Patrick Fry in this instance. And here's their email address, here's their number. Great. It's not just, you know, 1-800 Snoqualmie. Best of luck. Hope you reach somebody kind of thing.
well, good. I'm glad we have two really responsible people for them to reach out to. So thank you. Anything else on this one?
So, yeah. So we're talking 45,000 escalating per year, specifically to address ramps, right? ADA program. That'll be a new item for the budget.
No, that is already adopted in the CIP.
Okay.
Councilman Johnson, did you have anything that you wanted to ask?
Right, but being in the CIP doesn't mean appropriated, right? So is there gonna be any new appropriation requested?
That is a good question. I'd want to, sorry, I have not looked at that, and I'd want to defer to finance for it.
I can jump in.
Sure.
So for the current CIP has been adopted and that money appropriated as it is called out in the CIP. So 42,000 per year, 84 for the biennium, that part is appropriated. If the next CIP is adopted and it is still included, and then the budget cycle follows up and adopts the CIP, essentially piece for piece, it will also be maintained in there. At this time, Pat's project is the ADA transition plan, which only represents the first half of this biennium's budget authority or appropriation amount for that the project, or I'd actually rather call it a program
It's a
because
program,
it's
yeah.
going forward. Yeah, but yes. Is that would you like me to clarify anything else?
No, thanks. I don't.
And just looking through the plan, it looks like about 2/3 of our stuff is out of compliance. Is that a reflection of a change in the ADA code that has happened since those things were built?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
All right.
I would also say to that too is that 2/3 being out of compliance is remarkably good. Most cities are much worse than that.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
And we haven't built anything. We haven't built anything that was out of compliance at the time that it was built. Correct?
That's correct.
All right, great. Consent? or non-consent? Councilman Johnson, you have an opinion?
I mean, to me, it seems like we should do the right thing for our people with disabilities. And they're not requesting any new appropriation right now that is in conflict with our current budget. So I'd say that this should be consent. That's my opinion.
And it doesn't appear that there's anything that we could do to stop this one. So we got to do it. So you cool with that?
I'm good at this stage.
All right, consent.
Yeah.
All right, next on the agenda is it council discussion? Are we up to that yet?
Yep, that was the only agenda bill we had.
Okay, all right. So the first one then was the utility rate study discussion. Mr. Chambliss.
Good afternoon. So just this afternoon, Dylan forwarded me a contract. It's for a fiscal health review. So we are going to take the old model, update the inflation numbers for accuracy, since we're at the end of that time, and then rerun the model. And then by mid-November, we should have an adjustment factor that we can take action on this year. And so we're getting it scheduled, lined up. So we'll be seeing that second meeting in November. And then for the second reading, first meeting in December. A longer term rate study, we're also working on negotiating that scope. That will be started probably around the first of the year. And with the anticipation that starting in summer, we're going to work with the committees, hopefully spring. And then the goal is to wrap that all up by August, September. So it's out of the way for our budget activities next year.
Councilman Johnson?
Nothing right now.
Okay.
When you're doing the fiscal health, will you be revising the current status of CIP project? Which ones are done, because that goes into the rate?
Yes.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah.
And our next one is community center presentation.
Me again, I guess. So we have a couple things to talk about tonight. So first, we want to point out that we've talked about the community center at these meetings listed in different types of venues. We've talked about it at this committee, we've talked about it at the Parks and Events Commission, we've talked about it City Council, and we've also even had community meetings dedicated to this project. All the dates are listed, a summary of what kind of was talked about at that time. When we started our schematic design process, these were the design principles that we identified as important to this design. We wanted a magnetic hub for the community. We wanted it to be uniquely Snoqualmie. We wanted it to be an inclusive design. We wanted maximum flexibility. We wanted to be good stewards of the environment, and we wanted it to be made of high performance materials. So we have now pretty much wrapped up schematic design, and the next step is to roll into the actual plans. So what we are presenting tonight are 5 different options, 5 different price points. And what we're hoping to do is, with your blessing, take it to full council at the next meeting and get the entire council to steer us to one option. Then we will begin that design process. If we continue working on 5 different designs, it's way too much work. We're not going to hit our dates. The budget's going to get blown, etc. So we need to start focusing it. So our ideal schematic design is shown here. It has a competition pool, it has a recreation pool, has new locker rooms, equipment storage, ancillary facilities. It has office space for additional Y staff. It has a lobby that is accessed from both the parking lot of the park and from Ridge Street. And it adds square footage to the other end of the building for exercise, aerobics, etc. It also improves the daycare, child care facilities at the facility. Some renderings of that ideal design. This is from Ridge Street. This is walking up from Ridge Street. This is when you get up there, there's a patio out front, patio area with an overhang. This is approaching from the parking lot. This is an aerial from the Ridge Street side of the facility. This is an aerial from the parking lot side of the facility. This is inside looking from the activity pool towards the one end of the building. This is a image highlighting the windows that look out over Ridge and Center Street. This is looking from the starting blocks at the other end of the building down towards the activity pool. And the base bid for that ideal design is landing at 26.8 million. So basically $27 million. Option one, we would reduce the design in the area of it orange, and we accomplish that by pulling out the lazy river. This is $500,000 in savings, which takes the price down to $26.4 million. It removes about 20 feet of overall length to the building. Still maintains the 6-lane competition pool, still maintains a separate leisure pool and toy area. Option two would remove the leisure recreation pool in its entirety. It removes about 70 feet of the overall building, and it reduces construction costs down to $24.2 million. So basically we would have a pool, a 6-lane competition pool with a shallow end and a deeper end. All activities would occur in one body of water. Temperature of the water would be kept somewhere between where the leisure people want it and the athletic folks want it. And there's one temperature. Advantage to this is there's one system. So you're only paying for one set of filters, one heater, etc. It's cheaper to operate, etc. Obviously. Option number three, we took both the leisure pool and the competition pool and we smashed them together. This removes about 20 feet of the building, and you get to save on your systems because you still only have one body of water. So you're only paying for one heater, one set of filters, etc. This changes the price to $26.5 million. Option number four would reduce 2 lanes of the competition pool and skinny up that leisure pool. It removes 20 feet of length and about 7 feet of width of the building. And it the price goes down to $25.8 million for this this feature. Now, this would eliminate the high school having an opportunity to compete at this pool. They could still practice at this pool by sharing lanes. Round robin swimming or splitting lanes. I don't know how big the team is. That would still be on the table with this design. Option number 5 would keep the single competition pool option, but it would reduce the redesign and reduce the locker rooms. It also would eliminate the additional exercise space. It really reduces the child care facilities, removes some bathrooms for them, etc. And this brings the price down to $21.9 million. So these are basically the 5 different options that we have here. Before we get in too deep into that discussion, we put together a funding plan for this. So we have $15.4 million in REIT and sales tax money that has been 15 million of which has been committed to this project in the CIP. There's 400,000 left. That was a an excess from the previous budget cycle that is available to be committed to this project. We received a $1 million King County grant. The YMCA is pledging $2.2 million. We had $400,000 in Parkway savings. And we've identified 4 projects in the existing and future CIP that we can delay, which would generate another $4 million for a total of $23 million. Those projects that we would anticipate delaying would be the Sandy Cove Park upper bank improvements, not the restoration project and not putting the park back. It's that upper bank interaction with the new winery building, etc. And there are things lining up that's going to be delayed either way. We're not going to be able to do that this biennium. Another one, it's believed that we're about $200,000 over budgeted in the riverfront land CIP. The fire chief and the interim fire chief, and we've also been approached by the individual firefighters, all believe that we don't need a ladder truck. In fact, the firefighters do not want a ladder truck because it's additional training, pressure and training requirements and certification requirements that they will have to get and maintain based upon that presentation last night about all the overtime already because of all the training, etc. So it's recommended that we delay the ladder truck, if not cancel the ladder truck after we do a study. But the other advantage to delaying the ladder truck is we have a new pumper truck coming on next year. And by delaying that ladder truck 2 or 3 years, you're spreading out your major capital purchases in fire. So you're not doing 2 one right after another, and then 10 years later having to do 2 right after another. If you can spread it out, it's a lot easier to budget for.
Isn't some of that truck funded by impact fees or whatever?
According to our budget analyst, no, it's available.
I think we already used the impact fees on like the older fire truck. Or you think
I
about,
thought part of that was actually funded by the Salish Lodge. So take a look. I thought part of it was funded by the Salish Lodge, about 500,000 came there from eventual, and there was subsequent agreements. So I'm not sure what the status is, but take a look at it.
Okay. And then we also believe we can delay the Arboretum Trail, which would be about 600,000. Now, both the fire truck and the Arboretum Trail are 25-26 projects, so they have not been appropriated yet. They are planned to be appropriated in the next biennium.
What's the Arboretum Trail? Where's that one?
I would gonna throw that one to Dylan.
The short answer is the Arboretum Trail is the space directly across from the high school. So if you think about where the high school is and then you have Park Avenue, the field, this is what it looks like. It used to have a mobile home park there, and there used to be a couple other homes that were purchased as part of the riverfront acquisitions. That whole space represents what would be a part of the Riverwalk Arboretum Trail.
So it's
Combo.
part of the river walk. You've separated it out as, this section is called the Arboretum Trail.
Exactly.
Okay.
Parts of the larger concept.
And now, as far as the ladder truck is concerned, we have to have a ladder truck once the mill project goes through, right? Once that's developed, we can't get around having a ladder truck, can we? I thought
The interim chief doesn't share that opinion.
I thought that was the whole point. We got these high buildings, and we need to have a ladder truck in order to properly service it. Am I remembering that wrong?
As the fire personnel explained to me, the first truck on scene is not going to be doing ladder operations. The first truck on scene prepares the site and gets ready to conduct rescue operations. Your ladder trucks arrive the third and fourth trucks in, and that's when you finally have enough personnel to do ladder type operations. And since our fire department is so small, and we can get the fire department to come and explain this a lot better than I am, because our fire department's so small, we're never going to have a need for that truck. And what that truck will do, by acquiring that truck and having that truck will primarily be responding to out-of-city events as mutual aid. Because then they would be the third or fourth truck. Because they would ring them out, third or fourth.
Chair.
Yeah.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would wonder if we should have the Public Safety Committee really take up the ladder truck issue and come up with a kind of an explanation to council and maybe a presentation, something like that. But it feels like that's kind of a issue.
I missed that. Can you say that again?
You're cutting out.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm having spotty internet. Okay, let me do this.
We can hear you now.
Okay.
And now we can't hear you at all.
Worse.
But your point is a good one. That could be something that public safety could look at. And we'll suggest that too.
Do we really need it or not? Those kinds of discussions, I think it happened there probably more effectively.
Well said.
Sure.
Also, just one other quick thing on the Sandy Cove Park. I just want to make sure that I understood that. That the idea is that the part that we're talking about is not the saving Sandy Cove Park from being eroded away into the river. This is about something that's further up that has to do with the gravel parking lot or something like that. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yep. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, just want to make sure I understood that.
So okay, then that was something I thought the 1.7 million had to do with the overlay of the current emergency revetment.
No.
No.
This is unrelated to
Okay.
that.
Correct.
So would you explain it?
Yeah, I can. So there's two CIP items on our CIP. One is the bank stabilization and restoration aspects. That's just going on right now, phase 1. And phase 2 will be the much more robust version. And then we have basically wherever the revetment work ends on the high side from there to where the property line would stop at where Sigillo Sellers property begins. That section is the park restoration, or I think it's called the Sandy Cove Park Improvement item. And that item would be, how do we design the park to make sense between our restoration work that was previously completed and with how it links up to the right of way. So it can include lots of things. It's a pretty versatile location. It doesn't necessarily need to be green grass park. It could be lots of things, but it will include both elements, roadway type details on the right of way, as well as connection to that restoration park.
Yes, Councilman Holloway.
So back to the fire truck though. At some stage that would, at some stage and for a long time, that was a requirement of the city. Okay, so if we're gonna take a look at it again, I want to understand why was it a requirement and what has changed? Okay, guys, partially what has changed is the Salish Lodge's development's not going, but we do have now development across the street, which is going to be comparable in size. So I don't understand why the ladder truck's taken off. Okay, if these other concerns were valid back then, why was this on there? Okay, not quite willing, ready to give that up, considering with the buildings we've got coming on the mill site.
I would say it could be part of the accreditation process, and so we'll have them look into that as well as a feather in the cap.
What do you mean?
I think people just wanted a ladder truck But I think also part of the accreditation process is probably based on so many high buildings that you may need one.
I'm sorry, you think that people just wanted a ladder truck because they're cool?
No,
Yeah.
there's an actual requirement, certain, after you get a certain number of buildings over a certain height, your fire department should have a ladder truck.
That was the understanding that I had too.
Right, and so
So-
we'll check into the
Check it- check-
accreditation
into
process,
that.
or what they were stating, but
It's tough to swallow. What was explained to us as a public safety necessity, putting it off for the swimming pool. That's hard to initially swallow. I think I'd need to. That takes some convincing for me. Councilman Johnson, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just two things. One is, yeah, the ladder truck discussion absolutely needs to happen. We need to get on board as a council that that's really what something you want to trade in. Thank you, sweetheart. I know you're hungry. One other quick thing. I thought that the King County grant. I know. I thought that the King County grant was for what we're in right now, the design build project. I thought that we kind of spent that in what we're doing right now. Not that it would go toward the actual construction. So I'm wondering about that 1 million, and am I misunderstanding that?
No, the prices reflect what we're doing now included.
Okay, that helps a lot to understand. Thank you.
A couple more questions. Okay, Chair.
By all means.
YMCA 2.2 million, how much of that is their eventual request to the state for a grant next year?
1.2.
Okay, so you got $1 million there. Parkway savings, $400,000. Was that from the recent project we just did?
Yes.
So that was state money to
Uh,
us.
That was our money that well, Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, the budget allocates 5 million from the state and 1.4 of our money to back it up for a total of 6.4. When we got the actual bids in, the project came in less than we anticipated. When we put 6.4 as our guesstimate, back when we made the budget. So we spent the majority lion's share of the money from the state fund, and then we had a couple things that the state would not reimburse us for that are covered by our match, so to speak, of that, and that's 1.4. But we have cost savings because the whole project came in very close to 5.
Well managed. Good job. But does that mean that those funds are automatically discretionary and we can use them however we want? Or are they?
I can clarify too, sorry. Of that money that's allocated, we didn't say there's 1.4, and that's utility money tied into it that is not discretionary, so to speak. It can't be used for just anything that's actually locked up in.
So the savings was 1.4.
It's somewhere close to that. Because the parkway's still
Okay.
kind of wrapping up, but it is somewhere close to that. Let's say 1. I think we assumed it was about 1, and then we took off 0.6 for money that's utility specific or transportation utility specific
That aren't discretionary.
that aren't discretionary and
Right.
have to go back to another transportation or utility project.
Okay. Councilman Holloway, anything else?
Yeah, give me just a second here.
Councilman Johnson, do you have anything?
Wondering, let's just say that the council says, if we can't get the whole package, then we don't want to do it at all. Not saying that's what we're going to say, but let's just pretend that happens. Is there a plan to cover the extra 4 million to get us up to 27?
So this is what we have identified. So there is a gap.
Can we go back to the option costs?
You were saying, Mr. Chambliss?
There is a gap.
but we are working with the school district and we have some other possible, I guess, funds or things we're gonna look at, other parties, so.
Now, I'm going to switch screens to the second part of this conversation. If I can get the windows on Zoom to all magically line up right.
So, wait, before we go on.
Okay.
The proposal is to take this to council Monday with the objective of council picking an option and say, yay, verily go forth.
With design.
You don't have enough funding to cover any of these options.
Correct. Well, we have enough funding to cover version 5.
Yeah, well, you take the fire truck out and you take some other thing out and you're kind of short on that one too. That was the math I was doing.
Okay.
Okay, I'm a little reluctant to take riverfront acquisition off. I mean, that's been an important thing we're doing. I do
It's
not
not,
think-
that's not all of it. That's just the portion that we believe is over allocated.
Okay, so I'll throw it's 200,000. I'll throw that back in. I don't think the requirement for the fire truck structurally from the city, if anything, the requirement is more than what it was now that we've done the mill site. Okay, admittedly, the Salish Lodge is not going to go in, but you got 6 other large buildings going in over there that we got to address. Okay, so, all right. I have a hard time saying go verily when the budget is not there to support any of the options.
Understand? So let me,
I just have a follow-up on that. Why do we have so many things that I mean, I love coming in under budget, don't get me wrong, but why do we have so many things that are so under budget or over allocated that we can, go ahead. I think,
If I can, I could just speak to the ones that we've identified here rather than going through the whole list.
that'd be great.
Partially, it's because the projects get delayed because of other projects. So for example, the Sandy Cove one, we can't start building a park until we've done the revetment work. It's foundational to the park's livelihood, really, not livelihood, but existence. It will. So it's needed. So because of our status of another project, we're delayed on this one. So the money couldn't be spent this year, no matter what. And then other projects we have, it's just a likelihood of not being able to achieve the project in a certain amount of time. So for example, the acquisitions, we only have so many acquisition opportunities. There's money that's set up and set there to make these purchases with some grant matches and things of that nature. We don't always have the chance to buy the house or a house that we can afford or some combination of that. As far as the other two, I don't know.
No, I get that. I guess where philosophically I'm not tracking is that we've got that money allocated for these specific reasons. And then if we decide, well, we can't get to it this year, so let's use that money for this other completely different project, and we spend that money on that completely different project, then when it comes time to do the thing that we originally allocated the money for, where's the magic bag that money comes out of?
In a weird way of describing it's the future. Essentially, we're not changing the list of projects that we want to achieve. All we're doing is pushing them out in time.
So guys,
It just seems like you have more faith in the future than I do, I think.
no, well, hang on. So delaying a project just based on inflation will increase its costs. So unless you're willing to kill it, it doesn't go on the list. It's not a savings. And you're looking for money that doesn't exist right now. So to make new money, you have to kill the project that was originally doing it. Okay? So if you're not willing to kill it, don't put it on the list.
Or Mr.
I was
Jones?
going to answer your question and tell you that there is no magic pot to take the money out of. So we would have to find new funds. Now, part of that calculus is which projects are more attractive to grant type funding. And the river is more attractive to grant type funding than the pool.
So it's a gamble, in essence, that if we take those funds and apply them to this project, that we'll be able to get grant money further down the line for these other projects, because they're the kinds of projects that have a better chance of getting grant funding.
I wouldn't necessarily call it gambling, but it's,
Is it a sure thing?
no. But
Okay.
as what is sure is what Councilperson Holloway pointed out. You're killing the project. That's what's sure.
So then shouldn't we put that on the sheet that these are the projects that we're willing to kill in order to put the swimming pool in? I think we need to be honest with
I agree, but in that thought process, I would encourage to examine, okay, which projects are more able to get grant funding, and those would be the ones that I would be more willing to put on there and kill than the ones that are not.
And you may put them in a category that says unfunded. Hey, these projects will never happen until we find grant money or whatever. And put it that way, but it takes it out of the current CIP funding.
It does.
Yeah, we do have a category in the CIP for those unfunded things that we're gonna do in 2029 or later or something. I forgot exactly what the year was. But perhaps they just go into that category.
yeah, go ahead.
So two things, on the park specific, I would be, even if the revetment was done, without the development on the other side of it, I would be hesitant to design that improvement. Because it's got to tie both of those have to work together. So I feel very comfortable putting that up to postpone that in, because that building's not, there's no application in for a building permit. It's not there. The other is on the screen you see here is the schedule for the project, and I want to call your attention to a couple things. So this brown bar in March is the deadline for the new energy code to go into effect. It's currently stayed for 6 months. So our goal to avoid additional costs, new technology that's untested, etc., would be to get a building permit before that date. So we're under the existing energy code, which allows gas pool heaters and has equipment that's tried, true, and tested. So backing that out, we're trying to get to design development for the GMP by the end of the month, which is why we're having this conversation today. We just finished schematic design. It took them a little while to come up with the 5 options to present. So this is how the schedule's looking. Now, if we miss that date, it could still happen. We're being told by the experts on the team that it's a $300,000 increase on the price. That seems a little low to me, but that's what they're telling us.
If the council were to approve one of these options, would that be accompanied by a budget amendment like what Councilman Mayhew was suggesting at our most recent council meeting that would reflect those things being taken out of the budget?
It can, but that decision doesn't need to be made until you get to GMP. So you can delay that until that point because you have budgeted the money for the design already. You're just telling us which one to design.
Okay.
But before we go with the go, no go decision, definitely.
Councilman Holloway, Councilman Johnson, anything else?
It's a lot to think about.
Well, I'm going to say, and you're talking about bringing this to council on Monday?
We were prepared to, but if the committee doesn't think it's ready and wants us to do something else,
I don't have a problem with it going to council. I think council will have a lot to say about it. And we might want to start that meeting early. I don't know. Because it's going to go late.
Yeah, if we don't have a roundtable scheduled for the next meeting, I wonder if we should do that on this.
I'm not on FNA, so
Yeah.
It's not my
We'll
problem.
make that decision in the next meeting.
We actually do have something special scheduled, so
That's right.
starting at 6, it's a reception for a major volunteer in the Snoqualmie area.
all right.
Okay.
Um,
And all I just say is that if we end up with something that comes to council in January that has several $1 million of funding gap, that's going to be very difficult. So I know that probably goes without saying, but anyway, yeah, I'd say we could probably talk about it at council, and that'll be probably a theme to some degree.
okay, looking at our discussion, we've got CIP presentation, Centennial Park update, City Hall stairs update, Sandy Cove update, and director reports. Do you have a favorite that you want to go with next?
CIP,
We've got 15 more minutes,
Sandy
14.
Cove?
CIP.
Yes, it's- yeah.
Oh, CIP. All right.
That may cover some of those on that list. Hint, cover some of those on that list.
Okay. Let me get prepared. Okay, so this is basically picking up where I was last week when I unfortunately did not have the greatest of internet connections to the meeting. And it is essentially a update or a status positioning of where we are with regards to the CIP projects that we have budgeted and prepared and have been working through this year. It is, currently mid-October, and the city does a biannual budget. So in a lot of ways, a lot of these projects and programs have so much carryover between the years, but I wanted to kind of showcase the status of what some of these major programs and projects are. I'm going to stop saying project or programs. I'm just going to call them projects because that's what I do. And then kind of show you a forecast of where I'm currently estimating we will be, and give you some explanations of what that will look like. I'm sorry about the Excel gore that I think I'm now famous for. I'll show you, this is what I work with when I'm on my end. So the blacked out lines are projects that aren't funded this year. They're in the CIP because we want to look at them and know that they're coming, things of that nature, but we don't have any money for it right now. So I'll show you in another slide where I kind of whittle this down to kind of relevant information. Then another aspect of it is that I capture it by how much money is in the budget for that project in the 2 years, how much we spent, how much I predict we're going to spend by the end of 24, and then the percentages that match up with those two columns. So
wait, are you
Yeah.
saying that none of those blackout items have any funding for them at all?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in this biennium, in 23-24.
This fine.
Yeah, so an example of that project, we've talked about so many tonight, in fact, but one of them is the ladder fire truck, right? There's no dollars in this biennium for it. All the dollars are in 25-26, if appropriated.
Okay.
So I would like to just kind of break it down into utilities and into general fund. In a lot of ways, our CIP is kind of broken up into two, right down the middle and half, and funding source is really the reason. Utility projects have that limited source of funding. Either they come from utility rates or transportation, taxes, things of that nature. So at the tippy top of this list, you will see the projects that have transportation focus. So street resurfacing, sidewalk replacement, ADA ramp, or ADA program, which we discussed earlier this evening. Kimball Creek Bridge restoration, that is the 2 bridges across Kimball Creek on Meadowbrook Avenue. As well as the Parkway rehab, which we talked about earlier today, and Town Center Phase 3. Lastly, Meadowbrook Bridge restoration, which is the bridge over the Snoqualmie River on Meadowbrook Avenue. Call outs on some of these projects are that we have spent about 50% of quite a few of our programs, you'd say. The street resurfacing, we had Mill Pond, Stone Quarry Road, Tokal Avenue and Mountain Avenue were the repaving efforts that were done this year. They came in at a really great rate for us because the same company that did the Parkway also did our repaving locally. That actually did quite a wonder on our repaving costs and brought down a lot of our expectations, which gives us more room to look at either additional paving projects, but we're steering mostly towards alternative work on maintaining roads. So think different types of treatments. There's actually quite a few for pavement. So I'll kind of move on since we only have so much time in the world. Sidewalk panels, that's recently reviewed here. We do about half of them each year, and we are currently working through this first half here soon. Through the winter, we should be complete, and then we'll be working on the next one next year. I expect full spend on both those items. The ADA program, we have the plan. We have it going towards council next meeting. Once it's established, we'll have a list of all the, what meets and what does not meet, and a priority for the future. And we can start to identify opportunities for local street program resurfacing, things like that. Or for example, when we do a sidewalk replacement, if there's a ramp that's right next to the sidewalk replacement, we can look to repair it then and kind of team the projects up. Some of these bigger ones, I'm going to kind of jump away from the bridges because I think you can imagine what those are. Town Center Phase 3 is fully in design right now. So this is a big redevelopment project of the multi-use path that currently sits between Northern Street and the bridge across the Snoqualmie River. Right now, the path has a lot of undulations, goes over a pedestrian bridge on Kimball Creek, crosses the parkway, and then has to meet a very steep incline up to the bridge. That project is currently being designed, and we're actually in 60% design, and it's going very well, and it has state funding tied to it. And we're looking to get more state funding in the future when the project actually goes to construction. So a lot of the funding for that is actually cast into the future.
And the
when we
idea
get
on that
this
one is to even it out, so it's not so.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. We're trying to make it ADA ramp. It's not going to be perfect, our ADA access. It currently has a lot of elevation gain, dip and gain. We want to remove some of the negative things and infrastructure wise regarding the bridge, the pedestrian bridge is currently a rail bed, stacked rail bed, which isn't exactly the greatest of infrastructure for a pedestrian bridge. So a replacement of that, and then realignment of a couple of the features. Example, the parkway crossing has some widening, redoing the curbs to try to make it. Right now, it's pinched by some of the crossing infrastructure of the rail bed. So there's quite a lot that goes into making a multimodal path that we're trying to achieve with that project. You probably will see a much more deep presentation on that soon. As soon as I have 60% designs, I'd like to bring it back. There's a lot on this list. I'm just now realizing the time. So I want to call out that there's a bunch of projects that were delayed past this budget that are part of the 1040 zone booster. That's related to the waste treatment facility 3. So those were delayed out of this budget cycle. So you have zeros there. We don't predict to spend any money. And further down, Ridge Street development drainage, that's a drainage up on the ridge. We're looking to do that next year. We haven't started it yet. It is going to be a quicker project. It's only 160,000. Sandy Cove River stabilization is ongoing. Actually, I have a pretty picture I'll show you in a second. We're in the first phase. Phase 2 is a much bigger element, and we expect to spend all that money next year. But we're only going to be partially spent this year. And then water reclamation phase 3. That is a very large project. It's ongoing. It will spend all the money in this budget, and then it will start to look at next budget, and it will keep going because it has several months of work in the next biennium. So that project will keep going beyond this biennium. And I want to call it a few.
Quick question on item 34. Can you explain how we spend 100%, but then it goes down to 50%? I'm just confused on that one.
Actually, that would be my bar graph detail that's wrong. We'll spend 100%.
Okay, thank you.
It's just that the item below it, Eagle Lake, which we would have talked about the past few Parks and Public Works committees for funding. I had it a funny color because I didn't want to screw up Andrew's presentation as he was going. I didn't want to showcase something very different than the numbers he was about to present to you all. I didn't want to front load him, and unfortunately, I forgot to correct that mistake. That project is absolutely complete. It's done. You can see it and knock on the wood and everything. Okay, so the next step is we have a whole slew of general fund projects. These are your parks and trails, facilities projects. A few to call out, and I actually think I'm going to jump ahead and I'll come back if that's okay with you all. One of them is parks replacement. So one of the main projects within that program is Riverview, which is complete. And this is a picture of it finished. It actually has better hydro seating now than it did in this photo. It looks even more finished, and it is a wonderful park. I get compliments pulled over on the side of the road. People ask me, when's the next one? This one's great. So that's excellent. Another one that's in the work right now and that we're expecting it to be either spent all the money by the end of this year or very close to it is Centennial Fields, the inclusive playground. It's currently blocked off. Some saw cutting is going on right now. Money's kind of being spent. All the equipment's been delivered and the contractor is timing all their teams. Obviously the parkway is pretty much complete. Things, some final details on striping and some things like that, but nothing major at this point. Just the wrap up and close out of a very large, important project. And then I want to call out the urban forestry improvement program. That one is the replacement of the street trees up on the ridge that have improper soil, or I think Phil calls them tree graves or tree graveyards or something like that. And anyway, a replacement of those to make them actually suitable for our climate conditions and what we have existing on the ridge. So the bottom right picture is actually kind of where we stood about a week ago, but I can tell you that there's small trees in those spots right now. So I saw pictures of trees there earlier today. The last one is the facility maintenance program. There's a lot of projects that can be in here. For example, the back stairway in the city here. We are looking at concrete pours sometime
This week.
this week or next week. We'll say this week, next week, which will mean getting close to wrapping up that. We expect that this aspect of this program should be done by the end of the year for sure. And other aspects of it are boiler replacement at the fire station. And I believe there's some other things going on here at City Hall, the security and safety implementation plan, as well as some air handler work. A lot of that has already been encumbered by the budget, and we made very quick progress on the facilities maintenance program. And the utility main, this is a very big project in the utility fund. And I want to call out one of the bigger projects that was completed. This is the Williams addition. That's the bottom right photo. It is a water main replacement, and that was completed recently. In fact, we're installing the meters now. Top left is 3 to 4th Avenue looking out, and that is a sewer main that has been designed, and we're going to be coming to bid and then bringing back that project next spring. So making quick progress on those. And those are quite large projects in this this budget. Lastly, because it's front and center, here's Sandy Cove. I took this picture 2 hours ago. This is about as close to update as you can get. The project has all of the materials pretty much installed. So all the gravel filled, sandbags, the kind of toe that goes down in the water, prevents the toe of the bank from eroding. And we've added the coir to protect the upper section. Things that are left are hydro seeding, and that's the grass. And then as well as just some cleanup. There's obviously a lot of mess that gets made when you have equipment like this rolling. So that's probably going to be complete by next week, but there will probably be some cleanup wrap up things that we'll want to do following that. And then we're off to phase 2 of Sandy Cove. That is it. I can pull us back. This is the very easy to read Excel spreadsheet, and I'll leave it here in case you'd like to see it. I'm happy to send out this presentation and take questions as we go forward, I should say, not tonight, because I don't think I have time.
No, it looks like you did a good job of getting us through a whole bunch of the things on our discussion list. So thank you very much. Anything else? Anybody need to add? I know we got a meeting coming up in about 45 seconds. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, guys. What did we not get to, Mike?
Director reports.
Wow, great job, Gan.